I welcome you to the December 13th Board of Aldermen meeting for the city of Town and Country. I call the meeting to order and would ask everyone to rise and join in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a couple quick comments. It's great to be back in person. It's such a better way to conduct business in any arena. So I'm glad everyone's here. Just a quick point is right now, our goal for the city is to follow whatever is prevailing law, mandate, edict from the county and the courts. And right now, there is no mask mandate in place. As a physician, I encourage people to wear masks, but it is voluntary. These things can change. These things have gone back and forth, but for right now, it's voluntary. I will not have a mask on most of the nights simply because it's difficult sometimes when a person has a mask to hear them, and in my role, I do a lot of speaking. But I encourage people to wear it. And hopefully, the pandemic will continue to improve, and we can stay in person to person is our goal. I would ask the city clerk to do a roll call for attendance.
Alderman Allen?
Here.
Alderman Even?
Here.
Alderman Holman?
Here.
Alderman Perot?
Here.
Alderman Weezahan?
Here.
And Alderman Whitmire.
Here.
I have Alderman Hughes and Alderman Mortland as absent. Mayor Ream is presiding, and we do have a quorum.
The minutes from the November 22nd meeting, which in some ways seems a very long time ago. But I would seek a motion and a second to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second by Alderman Holman. Any discussion or amendment to those minutes from November 22nd? All in favor of adopting, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. None opposed? Okay. Next, I just want a couple comments real quickly. Very recently, the police chief gave out some awards to 3 or 4 of his officers that were just very impressive young men who have improved themselves and that were recognized by the chief. And I think it's important that we let the citizens know a little bit more about that. So I was going to ask Chief Cavens, if he would, to just talk for a couple minutes on that. And I just think it's important that we let our citizens know exactly what kind of police force we have here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, Board of Aldermen. As the mayor indicated last Wednesday, I provided 5 of our fine officers with individual awards. 3 of them were life-saving awards. Those recipients included Corporal Steve Dow, Officer Josh Hamill, and one of our newest officers, Joel Laney, for their life-saving actions during a suspected overdose incident as they were investigating a leaving the scene of an accident incident. The other 2, Sergeant Chris Moore and Officer Eric Diaz, were recognized for exemplary policing efforts, not traditional policing efforts, as many of us have seen in the past, but for their initiatives, whereas the benefit where the city benefited as a whole. Sergeant Chris Moore received the Policing Award for his initiative and drive submitting a grant for our new radar message board trailer, which helped us purchase a brand new trailer in the amount of $19,741. That saved the city money for that purchase. Wasn't taken out of any type of general fund. It was initially but then we were reimbursed for it. As many of you know, the current trailer we use, Alderman Allen is shaking her head. Yes, it's used very often, very effectively to provide us data for traffic enforcement. However, this new one provides modern technology, provides more resources for the collection of traffic data, and the message board is extremely large compared to our other one and provides us more opportunities to display a bigger, more lengthy message. The second exemplary policing award was very similar to Sergeant Moore's. That was to Officer Eric Diaz, again, for his initiative and drive for a grant submission that we have received in the amount of just over $2,100 that will help us replace an aging ballistic shield that our patrol division will be able to use. So those 5 officers were recognized last Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you very much.
So I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
Just one other comment I'm gonna make real quickly.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
just
okay.
John, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I was at a ribbon cutting the other day for Accenture Federal Services. Just want to comment on what a wonderful addition to Town and Country is. Over a few years, we'll be adding 1,400 high-tech and high-paying jobs. And I look at that as a win, certainly a win for Town and Country, but also a very big win for our area as a region. I mean, if you're not staying as a technology hub, as a region, you're in trouble. And I think the addition of something like that facility, along with what's going on in Cortex and other places, at least has given us some hope for that we will stay on it, we'll stay relevant in terms of technology. So I just wanted to bring that up. It seemed like a pretty good little visit with their CEO. I think that it'd be great citizens to have them in Town and Country. Next, I believe we have at least one citizen who would like to speak, and I would like to call that citizen forward to speak at this moment. Is it, and I apologize if I pronounce it wrong.
That's right.
Untitled. Okay, thank you. And for the record, it's important that you state your name and your address, please.
My name is Ante Jolich. I live at 12948 Fiddle Creek Lane.
Thank you very much. And we're happy to have you, and we give you 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not going to be 3 minutes long, but thank you for the time to speak. Thank you, Aldermen. I appreciate it. There are 2 things on the agenda that I'd like to speak about. Is the deer management topic that we have. I was curious if you guys have polled the residents of Town and Country to see if they are willing to actually do the management for you. I saw that you spent $70,000 plus a year on deer management. I think that's astronomical. And I know several residents of Town and Country who would like to sit outside our property and harvest the deer and save tens of thousands of dollars to Town and Country. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the pods, stuff, the dumpsters that you were talking about. I'm in total agreement with it, but the pods, I would recommend longer than 14 days because I don't know a project where if you have a pod that your project will last 14 days. I would recommend at least 30 days to have that pod on your property to do your project at your home. But everything else, I totally agree with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could just speak to that just very briefly, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Shelton, but I think for home construction projects, there may be a little more leeway in that. Ryan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Certainly. Any pods or roll-off dumpsters associated with building permits aren't, they're not held to these new regulations. These are non-permit related
Okay,
uses.
so if someone has a construction project and has a building permit, this doesn't apply to that.
Correct. This is if you're cleaning out your house
Right.
or
That's what I-
that moving in or moving out, those kinds of situations.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll discuss that other thing on the deer. I have a feeling that's not gonna fly, but I appreciate the input. I do. All right, thank you again. Next public hearing, and I will read this one, a public hearing to consider zoning code amendments related to the regulation of portable storage units and dumpsters, section 405.153, portable storage units and dumpsters. I now declare the public hearing open. I would ask the city clerk to enter exhibits.
Exhibit number 1 is affidavit of publication of notice of hearing. published in the St. Louis County on November 24th, 2021. Exhibit number 2 is typewritten notice of hearing, posted at the Municipal Center, on the city's website, and sent via Notify Me. And exhibit number 3 is bill number 2168.
Thank you. And Mr. Ryan Spencer, city planner, will be present to answer questions. Are there any questions of staff or any discussion? Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on it any further than what has been done? I now declare the public hearing closed. Next are appointments. First, for Parks and Trails Commission, I now seek approval for the appointment of Linda Robson to the Parks and Trails Commission. Is there a motion to approve in a second?
So moved.
Second. Second by Alderman Baroque. Any discussion or amendment? All in favor? Oh, excuse me. Alderman Weezy.
I just wanted to say about both applicants that have received a lot of compliments. Both have been engaging in previous commissions, and I think they'd be a great fit for the Parks and Trails Commission.
Thanks for the input. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next is for also Michelle Francisco. I now seek the approval for the amendment of Michelle Francisco to the Parks and Trails Commission. Okay, so moved.
Second.
Second. Wow. And any discussion or amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That passes, both those pass unanimously, and thank them for their service. I also want to announce my intent to appoint Charles Skip Dufour to the Board of Adjustment with an interview to precede any formal consideration as required by code. I now would like to recognize the board's opportunity to provide reports. And because Ashley said check lights, I did. All right. Alderman Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 items I'd like to discuss tonight. One is the Public Works Commission will not hold a meeting in the month of December. Our next meeting is January 18th, which is a Tuesday night. So in January and February, both our meetings will be moved to Tuesday evenings
Okay.
because of the holidays that take place
Okay.
on Monday in January, February. And in 2022, we will start meeting at 6:30 p.m. Historically, we met at 7 p.m. And my chair just did something, so I might need help. It just, okay, it's tilting forward now.
Why don't you just use
Switch.
one- use her
Okay.
chair?
All right, let me move to the open house and then I'll switch chairs.
Okay.
Okay, and then I just want to remind the community and the board members that tomorrow night here at the municipal building, Spirit Energy Incorporated will hold an open house, and they are the owners of the service gas station at the Ballas and Clayton intersection, which is 2721 North Ballas Road. They will have storyboards, and they will be here to answer the community's comments, questions, suggestions regarding that proposed development.
Okay.
And that's from 4 to 6
Thank
tomorrow.
Alderman
That's it.
Weezy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Parks and Trails Commission also will not be meeting this month. Just wanted to turkey trot and photos of Santa this past weekend. Turkey. And at the January meeting, we'll be, one of the topics we'll be discussing will be adjusting the rental rates for pavilions and moving forward to 2022.
Thank you very much. Alderman Whitmire.
Thank you, Mayor. So Planning and Zoning Commission will meet the day after tomorrow on Wednesday, December 15th. Our working session, I believe we're having a working session at 6:30 and our regular meeting starts at 7. And I'm getting a nod, so it starts at 6:30.
Thank you. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. The task force on the Veterans and First Responders Recognition Project met this last Monday, December 6th. We had 5 good submittals from the RFQ, we're down to 3. We plan to interview 3 of the chosen teams selected on January 18th, and we're looking to move forward.
Great, great. Very happy to hear that. Very happy. And I understand, Mr. Shelton, you do not have a report?
No report this evening.
Great. Okay. Moving on, unfinished business, number 1, bill number 21-59, sponsored by Alderman Whitmire. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2159 is an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 405, the zoning regulations of the Town and Country Municipal Code by the amendment of Section 405.370.8.4 and Section 405.470.8.10 regarding conditional uses in certain zoning districts, specifically single-family driveway regulations.
I seek a motion to approve. So moved. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or amendment? Alderman Whitmire.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind everybody what this was and why we're doing it. As you recall, we passed a couple of conditional use permits where we asked the owner to push their gate back a little further to allow ambulances and other large vehicles to use the pad without going through the gate. So that's what this is about.
Thanks for your work on that.
My pleasure.
I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Whitmire,
Aye.
Alderman Holman,
Aye.
Alderman Even,
Aye.
Alderman Perot,
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan,
Aye.
and Alderman Allen.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4472.
Thank you. Bill number 21-60, sponsored board as a whole. Without objection, would the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2160 is an ordinance approving the budget and authorizing budgeted expenditures for the budget year beginning January 1, 2022.
I seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second?
Alderman Holman. And any discussion or amendment? Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to amend the budget by the removal of $60,000 in the capital improvements fund, and that was for the conference room renovations.
And that amendment needs, so that's your motion.
That's my motion.
And I then need a second to
Second.
that. And I think we could do that one by voice vote. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That has passed, okay. Alderman Even.
I am looking specifically at the portion for the Parks and Stormwater Fund with regards to rental revenue for the Longview Farmhouse and the pavilions. And this is a topic that has been discussed by me before and have had many email exchanges with Ms. Nixon. And in looking at the rental revenue, our projected budget for that revenue has decreased on both from the current revenue for this year at 8313 for the Longview Farmhouse and the pavilions staying the same at 6960. So I would just like to make the recommendation to the board that we receive quarterly updates on that from both Mr. Shelton, Ms. Nixon, and the mayor so that we can work towards increasing that revenue for both of those, given that the budget is not reflecting what we are currently bringing in for those. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is sponsorships. It's also a topic we've discussed many times before, both verbally and by email. And I would like to make a recommendation to our mayor and city administrator and Ms. Nixon that we get quarterly updates given to the board so we can work towards providing as close to 100% sponsorships for the events that we have for the community, so that we can still provide those events, but I believe that we can work towards getting close to 100% sponsorships. So, thank you.
would ask the city clerk if those can both be in 1 minute or each one has to be separate.
I took that as just a note for the record, not a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Then that requires no further action at this point.
Correct.
All right. Alderman Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. I am requesting,
If
$35,000.
I can interrupt,
Yeah.
one second.
Okay.
One of your suggestions, I think they're reasonable, get that done.
Thank you.
All right. Alderman Holman.
Thank you. I am requesting a $35,000 increase to the general fund expenditures in our 2022 proposed budget for branch chipping. And I notified our council this morning and letting them know that I would be bringing forward this amendment, this request, and I provided the reasoning behind it, and I have submitted that to our city clerk for public record, and I can review those with you now, but I believe all the board has had a chance to review it. But Ashley, should I read those or?
It's up to you totally, since you provided it in advance. It's fine, I'll just include it with the minutes, unless anybody says they didn't get a chance to review it, then you might want to.
I think for the benefit of the public, it'd be worth summarizing
Okay,
a
great.
couple of key points.
Yes, okay, so, a few of the points around, the request for the increase is, I pulled some data, with the help and assistance of our city administrator, and the last time we performed branch chipping in 2019, over 500 single-family residential properties utilized this service, which is approximately 15% of our single-family residential properties. So if you make the assumption that the average single-family residential property has a minimum of 2 adults living there, this has a community reach well over 1,000 residents. The 2022 budget includes $66,000 for events and $1.1 million for stormwater projects. Events are open to the public, and they are not exclusive just to our community. And I would argue that branch chipping has a wider and broader reach than most events, improvements, and projects on our city's proposed expenditures for the 2022 year. And this, though, is not to imply removal of any of those expenditures in our funds, in the other funds, but the point is the reach to our residential community if we provide this service to them. And what does this mean to our bottom line and to our numbers? If we should increase the general fund expenditures by $35,000, it changes our reserve percent from 53.2%, which is what the proposed budget is today. It changes that, lowers our reserves to 52.7%. So our reserves are still healthy. Another point that I would add is this is a little bit of bang for our buck, because with the branch chipping, we will send out 4 mailers, 1 to each ward, and that is included in that $35K. And at that point in time, we can take that mailer and add other information to our community, whether it be examples of maybe a QR code to capture more emails for our database, or provide information about the an agenda item tonight, which is the Wayfair use tax that we're going to try and inform the community on what that means if it should land on the ballot in April. So we can provide some information and data to our community on that same mailer that already has to go out for the branch chipping. And last, 8 sets of eyes through a public works commission, where at that look to see how we're trending and if the budget warrants this $35,000 spend when we're in Q3. And then after it would go through the Public Works Commission, if they would approve it, it then would go before the Board of Aldermen. And at that point in time, the Board of Aldermen could look at our finances and vote it for it or against it. So we have a couple more opportunities. So I'm just requesting that we start the year with this on our budget.
So your amendment is to add $35,000 to the budget for a branch pickup. Is that correct?
That is correct. Coming out of the general fund expenditures.
So then we would need a second.
I second.
Okay. And then let's have a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Appears to have passed unanimously.
Thank you.
And Alderman Allen.
Sorry, I didn't put it back.
Okay, fine. At this point, I would ask the city, okay, Alderman Whitmer, sorry, didn't
Got
catch
that
that.
in on you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I thought Mr. Brewer was going to speak. So a couple of things. One, I'd be interested to know, under capital improvements for the municipal buildings, over 25% of the budget is in other. Somebody could tell me what the other is.
Yes, Mr. Dolly and I discussed that. This has consistently been in this category, and that is for the capital improvement expense that the city pays to the West County Fire District for equipment and supplies.
One more? Sure. Second one was on the trail overlay for Longview Park, $110,000. Be interested to know if somebody could tell me why that is necessary and what the basis of that conclusion was. I mean, help me understand some objective look that somebody made at that trail and why we arrived at the need to replace that trail, the amount of the trail we're trying to replace, and then lastly, we can talk a little bit about how we came up with that number.
I can speak to that. So we're doing base repairs on the portions that need base repairs. And then rather than patching each section individually, we would overlay the entire trail. We recently had HR Green do a review of the trail project and then also to include the Drake's Trail. And then we would bid both of those projects together. And so essentially, I don't know if there's a grading scale that HR used as the objective measure. I don't know that sort of asphalt number for you. But that's essentially so that we're doing base repairs, for example, anywhere that there's tree roots that have gone under the trail and made the asphalt buckle. We have edges of the trail that are crumbling off. So anywhere where we have those, it would require a base repair and then the overlay.
I could follow up.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the basis of the number. Did you tell me that and did I miss it?
So it's base repairs and then,
But where'd the number come from?
yeah, so I was gonna say, Michael, if you wanna speak to that.
And I'm
The linear
probably
feet.
wrong on this, but if you could answer it too, do we, I don't believe we do, but there's no funding from St. Louis County on this at all, is there?
That's correct,
This is just our
Correct.
cost, right?
yes.
Okay, and isn't that kind of going back to the past few years? It's a fairly routine expense we have, maybe not exactly that number, or not.
Yes, we have done some base repairs in the past and we have done some sealing in the past.
Okay,
We haven't done an overlay of the trail, and
okay,
so that's sort of the
Okay.
new piece of it.
okay.
Part of that number is that access at Longview Farm Park is limited between where the docks and the bridges are. And so the contractor will need to essentially lay a construction access gravel road where we have a mulch trail right now. And so that has added some expense to the project.
Thank you.
Alderman, I provided that estimate of $110,000. That was based on an internet search that I've done of other agencies who have done trail overlays, and that was an approximate estimate. Unfortunately, in this case, it was a little bit low, but
That's all.
HR Green did provide a far more detailed estimate.
And again, about how much of the trailer you're going to replace, I heard the word all, we're replacing the entire trail?
The entire trail. It's not being replaced, sir.
I'm
It's
sorry,
being
overlaid.
overlaid,
Right.
an inch and a half overlay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Alderman Louisiana.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to kind of follow up. I spoke with Mr. Sheldon this afternoon about, under the stormwater project, for the the capital expenditure plan. I know it's in the code to do a cost benefit analysis annually, but it just wanted to continue the conversation if that was something that could be done semi-annual or every other year, or if you thought it needed to be.
It would require an amendment of the code. I don't know if the Public Works Commission has ever discussed this. I know internally we have, but it does state that you will reevaluate, that the staff will have a reevaluation of stormwater projects. And it does provide benefit. It does provide, benchmarking of the projects. And if a new project comes along that's more severe, it would move up in the ranking. So it does have value. If it could be done every other year, I don't know personally.
Thanks. Alderman Holden.
May I add some comments to that question, and then I have a question back to the overlay for.
Sure.
Okay, so with the cost benefit analysis, I think that's a great question. I will say that, as we go into 2022, it's necessary to keep it on the budget because we, the board, just approved a new point system or scale on how we rank our stormwater projects. So there will be movement as they look at it in 2022 with the new, and the list will be revised and out for 2023. So we need to go through with that process because we just signed that legislation where we provided more points if the square footage acreage was greater on the erosion control and then with the pollutants. We just did that a couple months ago. I can't remember when. So it's important that we do the analysis this year, but I will definitely take that question to the commission in January and circle back to the board. I think it's a great question. It's $30,000 that we have spent over, several years consistently on, and there hasn't been much movement, but this year there will be. And then so it makes sense that maybe we can hold on every other year. So that's that. I'm wondering if our Public Works chairman can just share with us, when you do an overlay, then what is your life expectancy or anticipated next time you have to type it for maintenance? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? When you do it, that type of overlay on a trail, just so the board has an understanding of, costs going forward.
What we've been doing on our streets is adding a rejuvenator every 3 to 4 or 5 years. That will allow the asphalt to last longer. We will probably do that on the trails as well. The company that we use is able to do trails, and I think maybe 8 years we'll get out of this at least.
And that's I look at it as like a top coat for my fingernail polish. It just adds, so I don't chip my fingernail polish quickly. It's that same type of process, but for our roads and our trails.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Whitmire.
I'm completely track with the metaphor, but I'm gonna switch channels. And that's to the Mason Trail North element that's in the budget. We've got $20,000 in the budget for next year and a much larger number the following year to replace the existing sidewalk. And I am not going to ask to remove that from the budget this evening, but I would like to continue the conversation around that matter. I know we have an MOU in place with the county to do this work. I know we agreed to do it. I have personally walked that sidewalk. I was running for office and couldn't find a crack, and maybe I missed it, but it's a nice sidewalk, it's in good shape. And the German in me says, why would we replace a perfectly good sidewalk? Maybe there's another way to do this with some kind of a bypass system or something where we can reduce our cost. I'd rather see us, and I know that we're getting a grant to pay for 75% of this, so in the end, the walk will only cost us like $50,000. But I'd rather see us spend most of that money working on rejuvenation, working on other things we can do to maintain existing trails, or potentially building a trail where there is not a sidewalk today. So I just leave you with that thought. I'd like to come back next year and talk more about it.
Reasonable. You can do that. We can do that. At this point, I will ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Even?
Aye.
Alderman Perot?
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire?
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan?
Aye.
And Alderman Holman.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously as amended and becomes ordinance number 4473.
Just make one quick comment. Budgets aren't easy. A lot of work went into it, a lot of review. City staff did a great job. CFO did a great job putting this together, the heads of the departments. And the Board of Aldermen did a lot of due diligence. And these things, they're very complicated, and there's a lot of nuances to them. And so I just want to thank everyone for their sincere effort in pushing this forward and getting this done. Getting your city budget done is a big deal. And a lot of people put in a lot of effort. I just want to thank them and congratulate them on getting this done. It was great work. And honestly, I love working with this Board of Aldermen because there's a lot of collaboration. It's easy because they get on board when I point out how wrong they are on some topics. Kidding aside, everybody on this board is open-minded to see both sides of an issue. Next, bill number 21-61, board as a whole. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2161 is an ordinance regarding the rate of compensation of employees of the City of Town and Country and repealing ordinance number 4332.
I seek a motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion or amendment? Alderman Whitmire.
Yes, Mayor, I just wondered if someone could tell me who benchmarked these amounts and when did they do so? By that, and I'm sorry, by that I mean, what's the basis of the numbers, right?
Yeah, early on in the budget process, we do a comparison with peer cities and look at their rate of compensation. We also compare our existing employees in the organization to peer employees in the organization. So those are our two benchmarks that we use.
And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ways and Means was, thought the number that we came up with was like the lower end of what's acceptable. And compared to, we're 2 percentage points below the pair, I believe. And so, yeah, there was a lot of vigorous discussion about that at Ways and Means. Alderman Whitmire.
Just a follow-up question then, I'm not trying to catch you off guard, don't give me the whole list. Can you just give us an example of some of the cities that we consulted?
Absolutely. It's Creve Coeur, Richmond Heights, Chesterfield, Ellisville, Baldwin, peer cities in our surrounding area.
I ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Even.
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire.
Aye.
And Alderman Allen.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4474.
Thank you. Number 4, bill number 21-62, sponsored by the board as a whole. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2162 is an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Standard Insurance Company for participation by the City of Town and Country in a group life and accidental death and dismemberment insurance plan and a group long-term disability insurance plan for its employees.
Thank you. I seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. Any discussion or amendment on this? I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Even.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Holman. The bill passes unanimously and becomes 475.
Thank you. Next, bill number 21-63, board as a whole. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2163 is an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Delta Dental of Missouri for participation by the City of Town and Country in a group dental benefit plan for its employees.
I seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? Would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
And Alderman Even.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4476.
Thank you. Bill number 21-64, sponsored board as a whole, without objection, would the city clerk read the bill for the second time, please?
Bill number 2164 is an ordinance adopting a voluntary vision care benefit plan through IMED for the employees of the city of Town and Country.
I seek a motion to approve. And a second, thank you. Any discussion or amendment? And would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Even,
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire,
Aye.
Alderman Allen,
Aye.
Alderman Holman,
Aye.
Alderman Perot,
Aye.
and Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4477.
Thank you. Bill number 21-65, sponsored board as a whole, without objection, would the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2165 is an ordinance approving a fire protection and ambulance service agreement with West County EMS and Fire Protection District for the provision of fire and EMS services in the city of Town and Country, and authorizing a lease agreement related to SING.
I seek a motion to approve. And a second, great. Any discussion or amendment? I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Perot,
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan,
Aye.
Alderman Even,
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire,
Aye.
Alderman Allen,
Aye.
and Alderman Holman.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4478.
Just would like to make a comment on this also, just like the budget, this kind of a agreement doesn't happen without a lot of work. The board was engaged in it. Mr. Shelton did a great job. I think it was a win for us. I think it was a win for West County. I don't think either side felt they got exactly what they wanted, but I felt like both sides got a fair shake. I also feel, talking to the Chief Sadler, that I think they feel they're in a good position in terms of the relationship with the city, and that's important to us here. So I feel that, again, a lot of people did a lot of work, and nothing goes through here that isn't kind of read line by line, word by word, parsed out. And so, again, I just want to make a note that this was a significant accomplishment. I just want to say well done to Mr. Shelton and the Board of Aldermen for just great work on this. Bill number 21-66, board as a whole, without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2166 is an ordinance of the City of Town and Country, Missouri, authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Town and Country, Missouri, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Town and Country, Missouri, for purchases from out-of-state vendors.
Thank you. I would seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
In a second. Alderman Crowe, thank you. Any discussion or amendment? I will start, I think. Alderman Even, you are first.
Thank you. I appreciate the public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Alderman Weezahan and myself have had opportunities to talk to various.
Okay, it's okay. Alderman Weezahan.
As I previously questioned, I was just curious on if there's some instances for online sales where there's a sales tax already. Would this change anything for a resident in Town and Country if it's already being applied?
So if there's an online sales tax, it most likely is from the state of Missouri, and that's the 5%. You should not be charged a online sales tax unless our city attorney corrects me for your local option, the capital improvement, or the park stormwater, because it has not been approved by your voters.
Is there anything from the county that's currently?
So the county currently does not have a use tax. They're discussing it. They've had a bill introduced by County Councilwoman Kelly Dunaway, but I anticipate they will approve it and put it on the ballot.
Alderman Whitmire.
So just to follow up, two questions. One, if I buy something today and I'm being taxed, this will be an additive tax to that tax, I believe. I think that's what you said, but let me just get that up. Let me ask the second one too. And if it is a thing that is not being taxed today, in any way, will this be an additive tax to that transaction?
So if you bought this at the store, right, so if it was a commodity you purchased at Target, you would pay the sales tax. If you buy it online, typically you would not pay the sales tax because we do not, Town and Country does not have the use tax. If this was approved by your voters, then you would pay this tax. Again, just the local option, park, stormwater, capital improvement.
And just to clarify, you're saying the sales tax, you're saying our sales tax. You really mean our sales tax.
The city of Town and Country.
Because when I buy something online, I'm paying X percentage, that's going to the state. I'm not getting charged a Town and Country tax in addition to that. And this will result in that tax occurring. Is that correct?
Correct.
But you have to sort of look at it from the business owner also. If I can buy something in Town and Country and I've got to pay the sales tax, et cetera, it's putting our business advantage in a sense. And I'm kind of concerned about that, frankly. Look, I don't like paying taxes at all, and we're not approving the tax. We're just saying we'd like to put it on the ballot and let the voters decide.
If I could,
Go ahead.
I'm not arguing that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand what we're doing.
But yeah, it would, yeah, but your point is, yeah, if something, if you're not paying a sales tax now and you buy it online, you're gonna pay a sales tax. Alderman Holm.
I was just gonna ask our city administrator just to clarify, and you just did, Mayor, you just actually, he did what I was just gonna ask him to do for those that are listening into this discussion. That this isn't really about the details of it, it's about, are we gonna spend the money to put it on the ballot? Right?
Correct, right, and then the voters decide. I would
Correct.
say,
Correct.
if it's being charged, and it could be charged to you, we would not be receiving it, the state would just receive it.
Not even asking that.
Okay.
The ordinance tonight is just, are we gonna spend the money to put it on the ballot?
Right.
If we sign off on it.
Correct.
That's all it is. And then the voters will decide later. And so then if we pass this unanimously, what responsibility do we have as a city to help educate our constituents, or is it somebody else's responsibility? I think would be another question to ask.
It would be our responsibility to educate. We cannot try to persuade, but educate.
So then we have the $11,000 that we have in the budget that we just approved to send out mailers and help inform and educate our residents. Thank you.
Just to reiterate then that this levels the playing field, right, for our businesses in the city. And it's more enabling legislation so that this will go on the ballot, but it's not a recommendation from us.
Correct.
Yes, Alderman Whitmire.
I would encourage you, if you don't support this, don't vote for it to go on the ballot. To me, our endorsement of this and putting it on the ballot is saying that we think it's an appropriate thing to do. Otherwise, we're just wasting the time of our citizens and wasting our money.
Well,
But that's my opinion.
I get that, and I think what's happening is that, a lot of municipalities are going forward with saying ballot initiatives, and I think it's, I think from the standpoint of, there'll be a fair, I think there's a feeling in most of these cities that Alderman Allen's thing, that we, number one, yeah, we want more revenue, sure. But number two, we want to kind of level the playing fields for our local businesses. And basically, that's part of what this is about, leveling the playing field for local businesses. Because if you're just a mom and pop store and somebody comes and exactly what that is and then goes online and says, well, I can buy it there online without having to pay a tax, you're sort of helping put that mom and pop store out of business. And that's where I look at it, frankly. And so is it sort of a tacit endorsement? Yeah, it is. I wouldn't argue that. It's a tacit endorsement of it. That's where I come out on that. How about a roll call vote?
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire.
Aye.
Alderman Even.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4479.
Great discussion. Thank you. Bill number 21-67, Alderman Perot, Allen, Holman, and Weezahan, without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2167 is an ordinance approving a deer management plan and authorizing a wildlife management service agreement between the city of Town and Country, Missouri and White Buffalo, Inc. for professional deer management services.
I seek a motion to approve. To approve, Perot, and second. Second. Weezahan. Any discussion or amendment? Alderman Even, please.
Thank you. I will talk at the appropriate time now. I'd like to thank our citizen for speaking up this evening. Been out in the community, have received multiple phone calls from residents who have expressed a desire for this program to continue. But also have heard from residents who would like to go through the appropriate channels to be able to figure out a way to bring this back to local residents. I understand that there's extreme concern with that and making sure that that would be something done in a safe manner, but I believe it's worth at least looking into for the next go around as to whether or not this is something that we can approach in a safe manner. I don't think we have the time to do that this go around. But I would encourage looking into that, at least understanding if it's something that the city can do in cooperation with residents or even our law enforcement on the side or fire department on this side as well.
Thank you. I think it's a reasonable thing to talk about. I just think of city, making sure somebody's bonded, insured, all those things, and then let's just take a worst case scenario. We have a very well-trained, accurate, good local citizen who's a hunter who misses and hits somebody. And somehow, and I would defer to the lawyers, but I think that's more defensible if you've got a well-known professional company that does it and is insured, as opposed to, you could make the argument, well, the city tried to do something on the cheap, just hiring some guy who works in the neighborhood, and now this kid's dead. I mean, which would be a terrible tragedy. I think it's worth a discussion, but I would, that was gonna be, I think, a tough one, my way of thinking. But go ahead.
And I understand that, and maybe it doesn't go along the lines of the sharpshooter, that it would continue something along the lines of maybe what Queenie Park is doing, because they are having people submit applications in order to become qualified to be that. I'm just stating that we have residents that are interested. We have local people that work in our city that are interested, and I think that we should at least look into it so that we can come back to them with an educated answer for our next go around.
Well, I think that's the key word. I think I need to be more educated on it. Let's look into it. Maybe that's more viable than I think, but it certainly is worth taking a look into.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Whitmire.
So first question is there anything in this bill or agreement that governs the size of the lots where deer management is allowed?
I think they're 1 acre or above.
Is that in the agreement?
I don't believe it's in the agreement, I believe it's in the city regulations. But we don't go on any property less than 1 acre without the adjoining property owner authorization.
And part of the reason for that, Jeff, is simply, we'd like to thin the deer where they're causing motor vehicle accidents. And if we would, because initially I thought, let's just restrict that to 10 acres or something, you have a little bit more breathing space. But if we don't have those many kind of areas in town and country, so if we do that, I don't think we're gonna actually thin the herd where they interact with cars. And right now, and I haven't, but as of November 15th, I counted them up, we've had 79 auto deer interactions. That's a lot, I think. And so, because I took a little convincing for me to use that smaller size, but it was an attempt. So let's go, I said, well, why did you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why do you want to do it on these areas that are smaller? Because that's where the deer are and that's where they're interacting on the road. So that's the reason for that.
If I may.
Fire away.
Or you can go back to somebody else, it's fine.
We're on a roll, go ahead.
My biggest concern is about the animals and tending to the herd and doing what's best for the animals. I'd like to know if, not trying to catch anybody off guard because I wasn't going to speak to this motion tonight, but, do we have any evidence from history that indicates that our prior deer management activities resulted in a reduction of automobile events? Because I had at least one conversation with a former alderman who indicated that unfortunately we didn't have that level of experience, and they were a big supporter of this program. So they had a reason to say something positive. So do we have conclusive evidence that indicates that this result reduces automobile accidents? Because, again, my biggest concern is the deer herd. And if we have to go somewhere with a larger lot and, for safety purposes, then so be it.
So I do not have conclusive evidence. I will say that I took the numbers for the first 5 years when we were not taking that many deer and the accidents were higher. I took the second 5 years because year in, year out is difficult. There could be a variety of circumstances. The second 5, when we were taking more deer, the collisions went down. I don't have the exact number with me, but I did run those numbers. Again, year to year is difficult to get a good sample, but I took a 5-year and there was a difference in the number of collisions. When you're taking more deer, fewer accidents.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought, and I may have just had this wrong, but when the person was presented from the Missouri Department of Conservation, I thought they showed when the deer density was down, there was a dip in the accidents on the slide that she had.
I think Aaron Shank did have a chart that showed that as well.
And frankly, the biggest problem the deer in the state are going to have is chronic wasting disease, more than time and things like that. It's trying to become a little bit of a deer expert on this. And the state of Kansas has got a real issue with chronic wasting disease. Not so much in Missouri now, but talk about what that could do over a long time, 50 or 60 years, in terms of decimating the white-tailed deer in this part of the country, or it's pretty frightening. Alderman,
I just wanted to address Alderman Whitmire's, the 1 acre is under the Schedule A, number 14. That's where it's in our packet.
Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'd just like to say that throughout the year, I get most phone calls in Ward 4 about excessive deer. And these are areas in the northern part of Ward 4 and around Conway. And I care about the deer, but it's concern of individuals who walk or drive in their driveway, and the driveway and their yards are covered with deer, and just the health issues of children, grandchildren being out playing around where the deer just left with various health issues for the children. So I'm hoping this year we can get some better baiting. Last year, we didn't do it last year. 2 years ago, we were, I think, Ward 4 was the fewest number of deer called, but hopefully we can better concentrate it in some areas that are really having problems.
Well, I will tell you, people complain. I will tell you, the mayor gets a lot of passionate emails on both sides of this issue. That is for sure. Alderman Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Shelby, do you have numbers going back to, I guess it would be 2019? Is that when we had our last full year of into
Exactly,
January?
right. We used to do it in January, so.
Of those bathing stations, do you know what percent was 1 acre?
Both, so that year, it was approximately 50% of the sites were one
And how
acre.
many sites is that?
Approximately 15,
15,
and we would anticipate this year 10 to 12 sites, and again, about 50% being 1 acre.
And
So-
are those sites where we have baited, several years?
The majority of those sites are repeat sites, where we continue to see problems.
Alderman Whitmire.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, just so that I can amplify my points around the animals themselves, I followed up with the MDC, with Aaron Shank from the MDC twice. Once to talk about the notion of whether deer repopulate areas after we remove them, because I did not want to be the storm drain for the county. And she indicated that does do not, their evidence indicates that does do not move. So they do not move into an underpopulated area, given the populations that exist in the county today. So my fear of being the drain is unfounded, right? Second thing that she said was, someone had told me that, well, if you reduce the deer, the ones that remain reproduce at a faster rate, they have twins and triplets. I asked her that question as well, and she indicated that that was not true in our circumstances because of the level of population that exists. She did not say categorically that never happens. She was very specific in terms of her words that she used with me. And then lastly, again, I said I worry about the animals, or I'm concerned about the animals. She said that our biggest concern, as she said to us that day, is overpopulation and weakening of the herd and their overall health because of that and the catastrophic things that can occur. So with all of that said, the last point around the 1 acre sites. Have we ever had, the other concern that citizens have is that a wounded animal will end up in their driveway or on their porch or whatever. Have we ever had an incident when we had the deer management company involved where a deer ran off and ended up in someone else's property?
I'm not aware of any of those. We don't have any record, any emails, or any phone calls of that happening.
I would suspicion
I would
that happened, the chief of police would have heard about it, so chief.
It just as I'll reiterate Mr. Sheldon said, I've not gotten, people have inquired, but I've not gotten any complaints as far as I know of directly of that situation occurring.
Thank you. What a roll call vote.
Alderman Weezahan?
Aye.
Alderman Even?
Aye.
Alderman Perot?
Aye.
Alderman Holman?
Aye.
Alderman Whitmire?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4480.
Thank you. Under new business, this is the most important business of the night. This is resolution number R11-2021, a resolution canceling a scheduled board of Aldermen meeting. I seek a motion to approve and
So
second.
So moved.
Any discussion or amendment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And if the city clerk could say, that's the 26th or 7th of December?
27.
27th.
That's the meeting that'll be canceled.
Okay, thank you. Number 11, bill number 21-68. I seek a sponsor for this bill, perhaps Alderman Whitmire from P&Z.
Absolutely.
In a second, I guess I don't need a second. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2168 is an ordinance amending Title IV, Chapter 405, the zoning regulations of the Town and Country Municipal Code by the addition of Section 405.153 regarding the regulation of portable storage units and dumpsters.
Bill number 2168 is continued to the meeting of Monday, January 10th, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Resolution number R12-2021, a resolution approving and authorizing execution of national opioid settlement agreements. I seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
Alderman Even in a second.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, the warrant list. The warrant list is in the amount of $299,246.34. I seek a motion to approve in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion or amendment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? At this point, I would ask the aldermen if they have anything they want to bring up that's not on the agenda. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to comment and ditto the comments of Mayor Reed about the great work from our staff, the mayor, Mr. Shelton, and the board, the interaction this past year working on the budget. And I really, it's been, we didn't always agree to start with. I turned around my impression on branch chipping, which, if that's possible, to change my mind, given all the right reasons, the branch chipping, and we will continue to look at it and critique that as a project, but that's one that truly does benefit residents, town and country, unlike a lot of activities that and benefits of our city that go to outsiders. And I think we've had good work on the concept of sponsorships for the events, and long run, that's a big change, and we're all going to share in that. So I just want to thank everyone. I think this is a good interaction we have moving forward. We have a lot of work to do in the new year. We have new ideas to follow up on, and I want to say Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I now seek a motion to close the meeting pursuant to section 610.021 RSMO to discuss attorney-client privilege communications regarding the state audit. We need a second for that.
Second.
I need a first on it first.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion? I would ask for a roll call vote.
Alderman Even.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
And Alderman Whitmire.
Aye.
It carries unanimously. For the record, that's 610.021 subsection 1, and the board will not return to open session.
We'll adjourn to closed session. Thank you for the people who came out tonight. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.